feud over? The tables have turned in the James Carville-David Hogg saga. The veteran Democratic strategist is backtracking on his previous criticisms of DNC Vice Chair Hogg.
Carville previously railed against Hogg's plan for young progressives to challenge long-seated Democrats in safe districts. He went so far as to call Hogg a contemptible little twerp. Oh, poor David.
Carville took to X to backpedal his previous comments, writing, "Just called David Hogg. He reminded me of the story of after the Battle of Shiloh, Henry Halleck urged President Lincoln to fire Ulysses Grant. Lincoln said, 'I can't fire him. This man fights.' David Hogg fights. The DNC needs him." American Federation of Teachers President Randy Weingarten seconded Carville, saying, "Completely agree. David Hogg is a warrior."
Meanwhile, the DNC could vote to oust David Hogg as vice chair. That's according to exclusive reporting by Semaphor's David Weigel. A Native American DNC member who lost the vice chair race wants a new election, citing fairness and gender diversity. The challenge should come as soon as next month. The challenge to David Hogg is just a hilarious example.
You're quite excited about this one, which you told me about 10 minutes ago, and I know nothing about. Tell me about it.
I have to tell you about this. This is an entirely identity politics driven, because there is some requirement, I guess, in the bylaws of the party and the chair race that they have to consider gender and diversity and all that. And so they're trying to argue that the election, this person is making the election of David Hogg, a white dude, we're talking about white dudes a lot today,
yes,
is invalid because it overlooked some gender-based consideration that is baked into the actual procedures that would be totally contrary to the spirit of democracy because they picked someone democratically. So that's all very funny. So David Hogg is fielding a lot of attacks. There's that hilarious attack, and then obviously after he said his organization was going to spend, I think, up to $20 million to primary older, safe Democrats that he thinks are not effective. That made a lot of people upset, including James Carville, who was railing against him. But now I spotted this tweet. They had a little conversation, and I guess they made up. And Randy Weingarten, not my favorite person, ended it with we need David Hogg.
A détente, a rapprochement, perhaps, between Carville and Hogg. I think it is better for Democrats if they don't fight with each other viciously. Carville, who I find an entertaining character, getting into the annoying little twerp stuff. I mean, it's entertaining, but I'm not sure how much good it does to anyone. There is also a broader argument, and I was talking about this with our friend Amber Duke at the end of last week. I mean, Carville obviously is best known for guiding Bill Clinton to victory in 1992, a time when I was almost just leaving high school, so that's a little bit of a time ago. And his argument that the centrist option is always better, that's pretty dubious in some ways. It wasn't better in Hillary Clinton's case, for example. There is some argument to be made, particularly in an increasingly polarized country, that someone who does animate the base actually fares better. And Carville always argues as if it is axiomatically obvious that Clintonite-type candidates would do better than progressive-type candidates. I don't really think that is obvious.
The Clintonite candidate was correct for the 90s, for the time period that just from a political standpoint.
Absolutely.
Centrism, and the centrists are always claiming that more centrism is the right option, but leftists are always claiming that
further to the
leftism is right or ought to be the policy. Where I guess I agree more with the centrists on some things, but then I agree more with the furthest left foreign policy you can go because of horseshoe. That starts to overlap with what I think. So I want centrism on areas where I think the Democratic policy is more reasonable, and I want not centrism on some things.
Extremism on the point where it meets with you more closely.
It's just a fancy way of saying I want the things I want the way I want them when I want them.
I would like people who agree with me, please. That would be much better.
This segment is probably as good a place as any to bring up another story I kind of wanted to talk today, but we didn't have time for in its own block, which is, did you see our dear, beloved representative, official representative, even though D.C. has no ability to vote, Elanor Holmes Norton?
Oh, no, what's this?
Did you see a report yesterday? You didn't see this?
No. Oh, dear.
There was reporting, I believe from Axios, that she would like the oversight job being vacated by Jerry Connolly.
Well, if she takes that, that would be a bit of a... Why can't AOC come back and take it? She was the best option in the first place.
Well, AOC is not on the committee anymore. She could do it, but she has to wait her turn. I think maybe 60, 70, 80, or 100 years from now, AOC could
get the gavel.
It will be her turn. But right now it's Elanor Holmes Norton's turn, is what Elanor Holmes Norton thinks. Elanor Holmes Norton, of course, is very advanced in age. She's in her late 80s, I believe. I have no issue with her. She's a nice woman. In fact, I've appreciated in the past things she wrote. She wrote something for a conservative news site, I believe National Review, arguing that the barriers around the Capitol as a result of January 6th and everything else are annoying and should come down, to which I completely agreed. They were exactly in my path from getting to Rising on my little scooter path.
Delaying your scooter.
Out of my way. It was outrageous. I will not stand for this injustice. Made me want to attack the Capitol on my way. No, I'm just kidding.
Don't do that. We'll have to throw you in prison.
Yes.
Once I resume power.
And then I'll be pardoned once Trump resumes power again. No. So I appreciate Elanor Holmes Norton. She has no voting power. But I think it would not be a good optics for the vitality of the Democratic Party, its need to attract younger voters, to give yet another very advanced in age person this job.
So you're kind of Team David Hogg on this one to a certain degree.
I am, except that I don't really agree with. I don't loathe him. I just don't.
Yeah.
He's not really demonstrated political acumen of his own, to my knowledge, necessarily.
No, I mean, I guess the gun control fight is still the thing that he's most identified with.
But that's always ends up being a losing issue for Democrats.
Well, is that not questionable, Robby? I mean, they have made more progress in that respect. Now, some of that's to do with, like, the NRA has all sorts of internal ructions and has lost some of its power. But over the period that I've lived in the US, which is about 20 years, I think the gun issue has become much less toxic to Democrats and much more debatable who it favors.
Well, they've also lost, gun control provisions have been struck down over and over again over the course of the last 20 years. We have less gun control in the United States than we did when I was born.
Right, but the political impetus for it has actually increased, which is why some of those laws were actually passed by legislatures in the first place, that the public dynamics around it through some, hideous things, including Parkland, which is obviously where David Hogg's identified with, that has changed that.
It seems to me the issue is when there's something horrible happens, there's an immediate desire for something to be done, but the public does not have, I don't think, much of an appetite for the sort of mass confiscation of guns or huge rate that you would really need to do to make a dent in the gun violence problem. Maybe they're comfortable with little, background. We're all fine with background checks and little screening things and whatever. It doesn't really change the violence portrait overall, but he could make an argument otherwise. And by the way, we invited him, David Hogg, to call David Hogg, and you can testify.
Yes.
Even when I'm off camera, I'm doing my job. I chased him down to get contact info so we can try to get him on Rising.
Perhaps if he joins, I can make my argument that we should rescind the Second Amendment. I'm sure our viewers would enjoy that.
Wow. These foreigners coming here, and you're not a Brit, but from the islands,
Europe,
yes.
Socialist Western Europe, and their ideas.
Horrifying.
That does it for us today on Rising. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
See you later.